My name is Henry and I never thought a speeding ticket would change my life. I'm a 28-year-old graphic designer living in Boston, spending most of my days creating websites and brand identities for clients. My life was predictably ordinary until that fateful rainy October evening. I was rushing to meet a client deadline, driving faster than I should have on the slick roads. The flash of red and blue lights in my rearview mirror made my heart sink. I pulled over, already rehearsing my apologies and excuses. The beam of a flashlight cut through my side window and a deep voice requested my license and registration. As I handed them over, I looked up into the most striking blue eyes I'd ever seen. The officer was tall, probably in his early 30s, with short brown hair and a strong jawline that could cut glass. "Do you know how fast you were going, Mr. Owen?" he asked, studying my license. "I'm sorry, officer." I glanced at his name plate. "Officer Mateo, I'm running late for a client meeting." He raised an eyebrow. 70 in a 45 zone? That's not just late, that's dangerous, especially in this weather. I felt my face flush with embarrassment. There was something about his authoritative tone that made me feel like a schoolboy being scolded, but underneath that stern exterior I caught a hint of concern in his eyes. "Step out of the car, please," he said, gesturing with his flashlight. My stomach dropped. This wasn't going to be just a ticket. I followed him to his patrol car, trying not to notice how his uniform fit perfectly across his broad shoulders. "I'm going to let you off with a warning," he said, surprising me, "but I want you to understand something. 3 months ago, I responded to an accident on this same road. Speed and rain. The driver didn't make it." His voice softened slightly as he spoke, and I saw genuine emotion in his expression. "I'd hate to see that happen to you." "Thank you, Officer Mateo," I said quietly. "I promise I'll be more careful." He handed back my documents, and our fingers brushed briefly. A tiny jolt of electricity shot through me at the contact. Our eyes met for a moment too long, and I could have sworn I saw something flicker in his gaze. "Drive safely, Mr. Owen," he said, his voice slightly rougher than before. I thought that would be the end of it, just another close call with the law, a story to tell at parties, but fate had other plans too. Days later, I was at my usual coffee shop, laptop open and working on designs, when someone cleared their throat beside my table. I looked up to find Officer Mateo standing there in civilian clothes, dark jeans and a grey Henley that did nothing to hide his athletic build. "Mr. Owen," he said with a small smile, "I hope you're not speeding through your coffee as fast as you were driving the other night." "Officer Mateo," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is unexpected. Please call me Jack," he said, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. "Mind if I join you?" I nodded, closing my laptop. He sat down with his coffee, and I noticed how different he looked out of uniform. More approachable, but no less commanding. "I have to admit," he said, "I looked you up after our encounter, found your design website. Your work is impressive." I felt my cheeks warm at the compliment. "That's not exactly standard procedure for traffic stops, is it?" He laughed, a rich sound that made my stomach flutter. "Let's just say you caught my attention. Not many people make me change my mind about writing a ticket." Our conversation flowed easily. After that, I learned he'd been on the force for 8 years, that he had a golden retriever named Max, and that he shared my passion for Photography time slipped away as we talked about everything and nothing. I should get back to patrol, he said, eventually looking genuinely reluctant to leave. But would you maybe want to grab dinner sometime? My heart raced. Was this really happening? I'd like that, I replied, trying to sound casual. We exchanged numbers, and as he walked away, I couldn't help but watch him go. When he reached the door, he turned back and caught me looking. The smile he gave me stayed with me for the rest of the day. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant in the North End. Jack arrived in a navy button-down that made his eyes even more striking. The conversation was just as easy as it had been at the coffee shop, but there was an undercurrent of tension, now an awareness of possibilities. You know, he said as we shared tiramisu, I've never done this before, dating a guy. You pulled over. I teased, dating a man at all? He admitted quietly, I've known I was attracted to men for years, but being a cop, it's complicated. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. We can take this as slow as you need. His fingers intertwined with mine, and the vulnerable look in his eyes made my heart ache. Thank you, he whispered. After dinner, we walked along the waterfront. The autumn air was crisp, and when I shivered, Jack shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders. Such a gentleman, I said, breathing in his scent on the collar. He stopped walking and turned to face me in the moonlight. His eyes were dark and intense. Henry said softly, stepping closer, I really want to kiss you right now. My breath caught. What's stopping you? His hand came up to cut my cheek, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was gentle at first, almost hesitant, but when I pressed closer, it deepened into something more urgent. His other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me against his solid chest. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. Wow. I managed to say yeah, he agreed, resting his forehead against mine. I've been wanting to do that since I saw you in that coffee shop. Over the next few weeks, Jack and I fell into a comfortable rhythm. We'd meet for coffee between his shifts, have dinner at each other's apartments, and spend lazy Sunday mornings walking Max in the park. But we were careful to keep our displays of affection private, necessity given Jack's position on the force. One evening, I was cooking dinner at my place when Jack arrived looking troubled. He just finished a 12-hour shift, and I could see the tension in his shoulders. Rough day, I asked, stirring the pasta sauce. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and burying his face in my neck. Thompson, my partner, was making gay jokes all shift, the usual locker room stuff. I just sat there and said nothing. Like always, I turned in his arms to face him. You can't blame yourself for not being ready, can I? His voice was bitter. I'm a coward, Nathan. I enforce the law, but I can't even be honest about who I am. Hey, I cued his face in my hands. You're one of the bravest people I know. Coming out is your decision, and only you can know when the time is right. He kissed me, then hard and desperate, backing me against the counter. I could feel all his frustration and need in that kiss, and I responded with equal passion. The pasta sauce was forgotten as we made our way to the bedroom later. Lying tangled in the sheets, Jack traced patterns on my bare chest. I want to take you to my sister's wedding next month, he said suddenly. I propped myself up on an elbow to look at him. Are you? Sure, that's a pretty big step. My sister Sarah already knows about us, he admitted. She's the only one in my family I've Told she's been amazing about it, keeps telling me I need to bring you to family events. The thought of meeting his family made me nervous, but the hope in his eyes made it impossible to refuse. I'd love to go with you. The wedding was at a beautiful vineyard outside the city. Jack introduced me as his friend to most people, but I caught the knowing look Sarah gave us. She pulled me aside during the reception. "I've never seen my brother this happy," she said, watching Jack chat with their parents across the room. "He lights up. When he talks about you, he makes me happy too," I replied honestly. "Just be patient with him," she advised. "He'll get there." The real test came when one of Jack's fellow officers, Miller, showed up. At the wedding, he was friends with the groom and immediately made his way over to us. "Mateo, didn't expect to see you here," said, clapping Jack on the shoulder. His eyes landed on me. "Who's your friend?" I saw panic flash briefly in Jack's eyes before he steadied himself. "This is Henry," I've been saying. Each other Miller's eyebrows shot up and there was an excruciating moment of silence before he broke into a grin. "About damn time you told someone at work. Thompson owes me $50 now." It was Jack's turn to look shocked. "You knew Mateo? Half the precinct has suspected. For years we were just waiting for you to feel comfortable enough to say something." Miller turned to me. "Nice to meet you, Henry. Kept this one in line. Will you? He's a terrible speed trap partner." Miller's casual acceptance at the wedding seemed to spark something in Jack. Over the next few months, he gradually began coming out to more people at work. Most reactions were supportive, though there were a few uncomfortable silences and forced smiles. Thompson, his partner, took the news surprisingly well. Honestly, after that speeding incident, I figured something was up. He told Jack, "You never let anyone off with just a warning." Our relationship deepened as Jack became more comfortable with himself. I moved into his apartment, and Max quickly decided that my lap was his favorite napping spot. Life felt almost perfect until the night that changed everything. I was working late at my design studio when I got the call. Jack's voice was tight with pain. "Henry, I'm at Boston General. There was an incident during a traffic stop. My heart nearly stopped. I'm on my way." I found him in the ER with a bandage, shoulder and bruised ribs. Apparently a routine traffic stop had turned violent when the driver recognized Jack from a gay bar we'd visited the previous weekend. He started yelling slurs, Jack explained, wincing as he shifted in the hospital bed. When I tried to defuse the situation, he came at me with a knife. If Thompson hadn't been there, I gripped his hand tightly, fighting back tears. "I can't lose you, Jack." "Hey," he squeezed my hand. "I'm okay." And you know what? When it was happening, all I could think about was getting home to you. The incident made headlines in the local news. Gay officer attacked during traffic stop. Jack's face was suddenly everywhere, and he was thrust into being an unwitting spokesman for LGBTQ+ officers. The police commissioner asked him to speak at a diversity training session. Standing at the podium, Jack looked nervous but determined. "For years I hid who I was because I thought it would make me less effective as an officer," he began, "but meeting someone special showed me that being honest about who I am makes me a better cop, a better partner, and a better person." His eyes found mine in the audience, and I felt my heart swell with pride. That night as we lay in bed, Jack rolled over to face me. "I've been thinking," he said seriously. "Dangerous habit," I teased, but fell silent when I Saw his expression when I was lying in that hospital bed. I realized something. Life's too short for hesitation. He reached over to his nightstand and pulled out a small box. I was planning to do this somewhere more romantic, but my breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a simple silver band. Nathan. Owen, he said, voice thick with emotion, you changed my life the night you were speeding down that road. You helped me find the courage to be myself, to live honestly. Will you marry me? Tears spilled down my cheeks as I nodded yes. I whispered yes, absolutely yes. The ring slid perfectly onto my finger, and when Jack kissed me I could taste his tears mingling with mine. Our wedding was held the following spring in the Boston Public Garden. Sarah, Jack's sister, insisted on helping with the planning, turning what we'd envisioned as a small ceremony into something magical. Jack's entire precinct showed up in dress uniforms, creating an honor guard as we walked down the aisle. Even Thompson, who'd become one of our closest friends, got teary-eyed during the ceremony when I pulled over a speeding graphic designer on that rainy night. Jack said in his vows, his voice wavering slightly, I had no idea I was about to meet the love of my life. Henry, you didn't just steal my heart, you showed me how to live it fully and honestly. You're my best friend, my partner, and my home. I could barely get through my own vows without breaking down. Jack, you came into my life writing me a warning instead of a ticket. And you haven't stopped giving me second chances since. You're the bravest person I know, not because you wear a badge, but because you had the courage to love openly and completely. I promised to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that courage. The reception was a beautiful blend of our worlds. My design colleagues mingled with Jack's fellow officers, sharing stories and laughter. Jack's parents, who had initially struggled with his coming out, were now among the loudest celebrants. You know, his mother told me as we danced, I've never seen Jack this happy. Thank you for bringing out the son I always knew was there but was afraid to show. 6 months after our wedding, Jack was promoted to sergeant. His openness about his sexuality and our relationship had inspired several other officers to come out, and the department's LGBTQ+ outreach program, which Jack now headed, was being recognized as a model for other cities. My design business expanded to include several LGBTQ+ organizations as clients, and I found myself doing pro bono work for various advocacy groups. Together, Jack and I started mentoring LGBTQ+ youth, showing them that love comes in all forms and that being true to yourself is the greatest victory. Life wasn't always perfect. Jack still faced occasional discrimination on the job, and there were still nights when I waited anxiously for him to come home safely, but we faced every challenge together, stronger for having found each other. One evening, almost 2 years after our wedding, we drove past the spot where he'd first pulled me over. Jack smiled and flipped on his cruiser's lights for just a moment. Want to recreate our first outing? He teased. I laughed, reaching over to take his hand. I think I prefer where we ended up, you know, he said thoughtfully. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if you hadn't been speeding that night. Maybe we would have met some other way, I suggested, at the coffee shop or through friends. Maybe he agreed, but I'm glad it happened the way it did. It makes a better story to tell our kids someday. I squeezed his hand, my heart full. Our kids How well Max needs siblings eventually. He said with a grin as we drove home. I thought about how a simple traffic stop had led to this life we'd built together. Sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places at the most unexpected speeds, and sometimes breaking the speed limit leads you exactly where you're meant to be.